Night has fallen, and the moon is a glowing golden orb in the black sky. See how it shines on the dark back roads of America, and on one road in particular. Come with us, and we'll take a walk down the moonlit road, for the night is waiting, and the moon is full.
The Moonlit Road presents Episode 41, The Plat Eye, written and told by Veronica Byrd.
Nellie Bell and Jean LaRue were sisters. Besides being sisters, they were the best of friends. Now, each girl had other friends, but they enjoyed each other's company more than anyone else. One of their favorite things to do during the hot South Georgia summer months was to go swimming at the old swimming hole and pick scuppernongs along the way. Oh, for those of you who weren't fortunate enough to be raised around here, scuppernongs are large, yellowish-green seeded grapes that grow down here in the South. Well, it happened on one of those hot and humid days that the girls could not cool off for anything. They tried going down to the well and splashing their faces with cool water, eating little chips of ice, and they even tried standing in front of the small oscillating fan that their mama kept in the living room window. But nothing worked. That was when they both decided that the only way to cool off was to go down to the swimming hole. That's when their adventure began. Nellie, who was the oldest, put on her pink swimsuit with purple polka dots, and Jean, the more practical of the two, her basic blue with red trim. The girls quietly closed the door to their bedroom, tiptoed to the kitchen, got their pails from the shelf under the sink, and oh so quietly made their way to the back door. You see, they were trying to stay as quiet as possible so as not to awaken Grandma Matilda, who had a room in the back of the house. But just as Jean put her hand on the doorknob and turned it, "Jean, Nellie, y'all trying to sneak past me? Come here. I got something to tell you before you go." The girls looked at each other, and with a sigh of disgust, they shuffled towards Grandma Matilda's room, for they knew what they were in store for, their usual lecture. "Y'all stick together. Don't wander too far off the road. You might get lost," she'd say. Or, "Don't let darkness catch you on the dirt road. Make sure you're home before nightfall." Or her all-time favorite, "Stay out of the Gullah-Geechee woods at all cost. Strange things have been known to happen in those woods." But on this particular day, Matilda, that's what the girls called her, seemed even more anxious to give the girls their usual lecture. She sat them both down on her bed and looked them straight in the eyes and said the strangest thing. "If you hear a chain rattling on a tree nearby, be careful, 'cause it might just be a plat eye." Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out 2 smelly little pieces of burlap, each tied into a tight knot. She then handed each girl a bundle and told them, "Keep this with you at all times today. Make sure it's always in your pocket no matter what happens." The girls took the bags out of respect for their grandma, gave her a kiss, and bounded out of the room. But before they could clear the doorway, she blurted out, "And make sure you stay out of those Gullah-Geechee woods. Strange things have been known to happen there." Once the girls were out of Matilda's earshot, they laughed and giggled about the silly things their grandma had told them. They thought it was awful strange, her telling them to carry those smelly little bags in their pockets and rambling on and on about chains and trees and the Gullah-Geechee woods and plat eyes, whatever they were. But they dismissed it as the babbling of a half-senile old woman. They grabbed their towels, dropped the burlap bags on the table, and headed for the ever-beckoning coolness of the swimming hole. As they walked along the winding, dusty road toward the swimming hole, they picked scuppernongs, admired all the beautiful wildflowers, and talked about how much fun they were going to have at the church picnic on Sunday. Well, the 20-minute walk seemed to take no time at all. And before they knew it, there they were. The swimming hole. The girls dropped their pails and they jumped straight into the water, what they had been waiting for all day long. Whew. Oh, they were finally cool. The girls splashed around and played in the water for hours. They played so much that they were completely exhausted. So they got out of the water, ate a few scuppernongs, talked a bit, and before they knew it, they had both drifted off to sleep. Well, Jean was the first to awaken. Once she realized where she was, she looked around and saw that the sun was setting and the warm summer day was giving way to the coolness of evening. She quickly awakened her sister. They grabbed their towels and pails and started back down the ever-darkening, winding dirt road. They had walked about 5 minutes when Nellie remembered what Matilda had said. "Don't let darkness catch you on that road. Make sure you're home before nightfall." There was no way they would make it back before nightfall if they kept on the dirt road. But Nellie had an idea. Jean, let's cut through these woods. That way we'll get home way before dark, so we won't have to listen to one of Matilda's silly old lectures." Like I told you, Jean was the more practical of the two. "We can't go through those woods, Nellie. We might get lost. Besides, those are the go-get-you woods. Matilda warned us not to go in there." "Don't be silly," Nellie protested. "Matilda just made that up to scare us. Ain't no such thing as a go-get-you woods. Come on, girl." Well, with very little effort at all, Nellie had talked Jean into going through the woods. With nothing more than getting home before dark on their minds, they started through the woods. At first, the path through the trees was quite visible, but the deeper they got into the woods, the denser the leaves on the trees became, making it much harder to see where they were going. Oh, Jean was really having second thoughts about the shortcut. She wanted to turn around and go down the dirt road. But once again, Nellie quickly convinced her sister that through the woods was indeed the fastest way. The girls made their way as best they could through the barrage of tangled weeds and vines towards what they thought was home. Well, the girls were doing just fine until they heard an unusual noise coming from behind them. Or was it in front of them? They really couldn't tell. They stopped, and so did the sound. So they continued on. But there it was again. "What is that? I've never heard anything like that before," Nellie whispered. And as if to answer her question, a large black cat jumped out in front of them. Well, this put both of their minds at ease, for there was nothing at all scary about a cat. Nellie walked up to the cat to pet him, when she let out a loud scream, for you see, the closer they got to the cat, they saw that it had 2 front legs, but it had 4 back legs, and his eyes glowed in the dark. What in the world? There was that strange noise again. What was that? And where is it coming from? The girls gave each other that look, and there was no need for words. They both knew they had to get back to the dirt road and take the long way home. They turned around and tried to figure out which way was out. Everything looked the same. They weren't sure which way they had come from. Jean grabbed her sister's hand and started as fast as they could to what they thought was the way out of the woods. The occasional eerie beams of what was now moonlight streaming through the leaves of the trees confused the girls even more. They were moving as fast as they could when they heard that sound again. "What's that? Let's get out of here." They continued a short distance when they saw a large, shadowy figure in front of them. They turned on their heels and started away from the ominous thing. But there seemed to be shadowy things everywhere they looked. As if out of nowhere, a large dog with wiry hair and big bloodshot eyes walked directly in front of them. He had a hole in his side, exposing all of his innards, which dragged along the ground as he walked. The girls let out a blood-curdling scream, and the dog screamed back, mimicking their voices. The girls were completely beside themselves with fear by this point. They knew if they could make it back to the dirt road, they could at least see where they were going. They were blindly running in who knows what direction when the odd sound seemed to be coming from everywhere. It sounds like a chain or something, like a chain rattling against a tree. At that moment, they remembered that Matilda had told them, if you hear a chain rattling on a tree nearby, be careful, it just might be a Plat Eye. They didn't know what a Plat Eye was, and after seeing the dog and cat, they weren't sticking around to find out. They ran blindly in one direction and then the other, the sound growing louder and louder with each step. It seemed to be all around them. They thought they were almost out of the woods when there was an awful stench that permeated the entire area. And floating down through the trees was what appeared to be a large hunchback hog, both eyeballs hanging from their sockets, dripping blood on the girls, and it made the most horrifying noise. Nellie and Jean screamed as loud as they could and instinctively ran in the same direction. They ran as fast as they could until they made it back to the dirt road. Once on the dirt road, they could see exactly where they were going, but this was no reason for them to slow down. Nellie and Jean ran all the way home as fast as they could. They didn't stop until they collapsed, exhausted, on their front porch. When they caught their breath, they looked up, and standing in front of them with arms folded was Matilda. Best they could, they tried to tell her about all the spooky things they had seen while they were in the woods. Matilda, we saw a hog, and he had blood dripping out of his eyes, and there was a dog, and there was a cat, and it was so scary, it was... Matilda let the girls finish telling of their adventure. Then she calmly pulled out the small burlap bags from her pockets and told them that they could have avoided seeing all of this if they had obeyed her and carried those bags with them. For you see, the bags contained sulfur and gunpowder, a surefire way to ward off Plat Eyes. Matilda has long gone on to meet her maker, but from that day to this, my sister and I make sure we always carry a small burlap bag filled with sulfur and gunpowder in our pocketbooks, just in case there are any Plat Eyes hiding out in these modern-day woods. Oh, I forgot to tell you, my name is Nellie Bell. It was my sister Jean and I that learned this lesson firsthand, and oh, what a lesson it was. So next time you dismiss those things your elders tell you as mumblings of silly old senile folks, you'd better think again. Sometimes old folks know what they're talking about. Oh, and don't forget, stay out of those Gullah-Geechee woods. Strange things have been known to happen there.
That concludes this tale from the Moonlit Road. Be sure to visit our website at themoonlitroad.com to find out more about our stories and let us know how we're doing. The Moonlit Road is produced and directed by Craig Dominy, recorded and soundscaped by Henry Howard in beautiful Stone Mountain, Georgia. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.